Hello, everyone. I'm Felicia Rondo, and that's Cluster over there.
Hey y'all.
And this is a review of IDW Sonic number 53, written by Evan Stanley, with art by Adam Bryce Thomas, colors by Reggie Grant, edited by Riley Farmer and David Marriott, and letters by Sean Lee. It came out yesterday. No, that's the. I'm sorry, I forgot to update the release. I feel silly. I feel so silly right now, y'all. It
You
feels
had
just
you had all the other
everything,
information.
but oh,
You even showed it to me. I didn't catch it. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
It just it could have come out in August. It couldn't have. No.
Hmm. Came
So,
out came out yesterday.
so it came out yesterday. I was gonna say that I saw. That's why I noticed. Oh, oh goodness me. Yeah, that's probably
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
No, normally that would all be done for the visual aspect of the but
sorry.
everything else was done.
Everything else was done.
Yeah.
It came out yesterday. This comic book that came out yesterday, and it's already seemed to just get a lot of praise.
Yeah, I don't personally follow a lot of Sonic fan spaces, but I definitely did see what little information I saw people praising it, and I saw Evan Stanley actually remarking on how people seem to be enjoying it a lot. So
Yeah,
clearly, people have taken notice of this issue.
yeah, and I guess since it doesn't pertain to the comic itself, I would like to just go over how like just the politics, I guess, behind having Evan continue a story that Ian sort of began.
Yeah, I mean, like this whole. I mean, I'd say he began it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
let, these were, Surge and Kit were his characters that he apparently has had in the back burner ever since Starline, aka the
yeah,
beginning of the comic.
yeah.
Um, so, like, you know, the introduction of these two characters, who have been very much the linchpin of everything happening in this overall
Yes.
big arc,
Hmm.
definitely Ian.
Yeah. But having Evan take over with him beginning, it seems to have had an effect because Ian, regardless of how you feel about the quality of it, he has been writing these Sonic comics for over 15 years now
Yeah, yeah, over 15
because he
years
started
now.
in 2006.
Yeah,
And so like with that comes some like seniority, I guess. Just like he's been around for a while. People get the sense that if you've been around a while, you know the characters.
yeah.
Sonic Team certainly,
Ian has name recognition.
yes. Evan Stanley, unfortunately not so much, but though this could change that because
Yeah, and I mean, I do want to point out Evan has been working officially with Sonic for a lot of years now.
I
Like
think
even in
maybe,
writing, when was the Silver Age?
gosh, I think I was like 20. Fuck.
2014 or 2015? But
It was around that time period. It's
anyways, he's
getting close
been
to 10 years, closer to ten
she,
years
she's
than
she's been
not.
working with Sonic in an official capacity, in a writing capacity. Um, for over 5 years easily.
Yes,
Um,
and she's really good at it. Gotta
yeah,
say, she's really good at this. Really good at writing Sonic and the characters in it, and making a story out of it.
yeah.
Um,
I feel like maybe for people who maybe haven't checked out her fan comic Ghost of the Future, this one was maybe a bit of a surprise to them.
yeah,
As well as I think it's possible that maybe people who weren't really tuning in to Evans issues might have done so this time because it's picking up off of an
yes,
arc that Ian Flynn did.
yeah.
So
It's entirely possible. Um, but yeah, I'm really glad that people are enjoying this because I personally would love for Evan to get more work,
Yeah,
get more assignments,
and
more stories.
and I hope that Evan gets all those written apologies he asked for on Twitter from all the people who said that he could only write fluff and slice of life, because
We talked about that a couple reviews ago, I think, of just like
I believe we did. I think it was around 49 or so.
yeah, just and y'all very frankly said like you're saying the woman can only is only good for like fluff and slice of life is sexism.
It's kind of base level, like, I hope this is not a hot take, because saying
Wow.
that the woman writes the dainty stories while the man,
does
Ian
the
Flynn, writes the action stories,
the
you know,
real
I
big
think,
stories.
I think it might be this kind of obvious base level, you know, sexist bias happening in your brain if you're going on that route. And, you know, biases happen, but, like,
You gotta
compensate
interrogate
for
them.
them. Yeah, interrogate them, compensate for them. You know, like, think about the things you say.
Please. But we've talked a lot here. What about this cover? It's
Right, the
by
cover.
because we go over the cover A of each issue because that's the one they're putting forth the most.
Yeah, that's the primary cover. It's the one that generally relates to the story the most.
Yeah,
And so it's the one that we put on our review on the graphic.
yeah. Sometimes we would pick a different cover if it was just which one we liked best, but for simplicity's sake and not like trying to diss on anyone, just we
Unless we
just go.
find the cover A to be like offensive, I think we'll just stick with the cover A.
Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen. But
Yeah,
this
that'd
is
be
not
bad.
this is not a case of that. Moro Fonseca did a lineless effort here.
Yeah.
It's kind of I think I was a bit harsh on it when I first saw it, but it's okay. It's got a nice. It's
I
certainly yeah
I like the composition and the tone
yeah.
and the colors. What I don't like very much is just the technical effort put on to how Surge is displayed in the electricity here.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't really like how Surge looks enveloped in the weird harsh lightning and the harsh lighting here.
I think
It
for
also
me
just
it looks
doesn't.
best far away.
Yeah, as you kind of look closely at Surge here, it doesn't look. Whisper, I think, looks a lot better, and like I said, I like the overall composition. And you know, if you look at it from far away, it looks, you know, just you mostly just seeing the composition,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that's the best part of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just am not a fan of how Surge gets drawn here.
Uh huh.
It
It feels
also,
like it's very much experimental, like going out of your depth to go do this, and I think that's good. I think it'd be
yeah,
let's hope it's a good learning experience.
it also kind of feels here like that either Surge was drawn specifically to like hide what's going on with her,
Mm-hmm.
because this cover was revealed well in advance of us knowing about
Dynamo cage.
the Dynamo Cage, and so like, and you
Yeah.
know, like the Dynamo Cage I don't think has been featured on any cover.
Yeah.
Um, Even, you know, even as the solicits have been talking about Surge getting a power up, it's been very vague as to what that power up was, and actually as of this issue, it's becoming very clear what the next stage of her power up is. So, but we'll get to
Yeah.
that.
And honestly, it kind of goes to show I don't really like how well in advance we get these things.
Yeah,
It feels like we know too much about like way too ahead of the comic, but like that's just kind of how the landscape is now. Everything's all hype driven. They gotta have their reveals
yeah,
and
and I mean, like they need to push sales. You know, like
yeah,
marketing needs to happen. Comics don't necessarily do great. So like they need to make sure that they're pushing the excitement and like, you know, trying
yeah,
to get people in and trying to get people to buy. So it's just an unfortunate effect of the fact that capitalism exists,
yeah.
and you know we can't do much about that when it comes to comic reviews. So
There you go.
we, To the extent of comic reviews, I will accept that capitalism exists and is presently a fact.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's not my overall political stance. It's just that this is not the place to
Yeah.
preach the downfall of capitalism.
Yeah.
That's for not in a comic review.
But yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on the comic review, I guess.
I guess so.
This comic isn't about capitalism. So.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a story so far page which only has one panel from issue 50, and then nothing from issue 51. To the most important issue in the comic. That was sarcasm.
Yeah, and it is mostly issue 52 and the immediate events, sort of like, you know, you can just read issue 52. You don't need to read 51.
You don't.
You can read 50 if you want.
Mm-hmm. Then we have a cast page which looks horrendous.
It is also very packed. There's 8 characters here, which it usually does not go up that high.
And at that point, yeah, it's like top to bottom on the page. But
as per usual, we put in our usual criticism of, please, whoever's in charge of this, update some of this art. Pick art that is more cohesive. The Tails art that they're still using is still bad. His eyes are too small.
Yeah.
It's off-model. Why would you use an off-model shot for the cast page? That's where you need to go on model. The Belle is not a good Belle. She looks like creepy. Her eyelid is up a little bit, and it just makes her look like she's weird and stressed and it's going to kill you or something.
Jewel
Can you please...
is awkward, and it's really jarring how close up she is compared to everyone else.
Jewel is more zoomed in than any other character. I'm not sure what this Whisper is taken from, but she's drawn and shaded very simply compared to most of the other characters as well.
It's a piping hot mess. But
this Eggman is not my favorite Eggman, number one, but it also just has a very clear distinctness compared to all of the other arts.
Yeah.
And it's like, please, can you pick more neutral? There are so many comic panels.
Yeah,
anyway.
But yeah, I actually would like to just talk about how in Archie Sonic, when this tradition began, the way this would happen would be, and we're talking a lot before we get into the issue, but it's our review.
And it's been a bit, but
and in Archie Sonic, where this began, from what I've read, I think it was the editor Mike Pellerito who prompted this, because more so than the writer, because it started on Ian's first official issue, but in what he shared of his version of the issue, there's also sort of a cast page. Hey Freyo in chat. Don't worry, you're not too late. We haven't even gotten to the comic yet. But so
about surrounding stuff.
Yeah, there'd be a cast page, and the characters would all be there, but they would be drawn specifically for that page by that comic's interior artist. Hello, Rain.
And as I recall, the cast page, at least at first, later in the comic, it switched to a format that is more being echoed by this series. But
I believe that was after the reboot. But
yeah. But initially, it was on the title page, which is also something that doesn't exist in this comic.
Yeah, and so they'd all be drawn specifically for that page, and they would have expressions on it. They would be looking at each other, or just have Sonic's feeling good this issue, so he's smiling confidently. And Sally's a little unsure, so she's like, I don't know, Sonic. And then it would just give the often young readers a nice compact this is where the characters are emotionally this issue, and that can be a bit simplistic, but it can also just help a budding reader digest the story. I think that might be part of why people tend to connect with Ian's stories more so than like previous in Archie Sonic, because like right at the top, it's like here are some emotional focal points to latch onto. And I think that was a decent editing choice from Mike Pellerito. And as it exists now, the cast page is fucking useless.
The cast page is basically here to tell you who's going to be in the issue.
Unless it's a surprise for later in the issue. And then they don't get included in the cast page. I'm pretty sure that's happened before. But, like, it's just... It doesn't really serve a purpose anymore besides, like, these are the characters. Yeah. I don't like it. Anyway.
I mean, I feel like Zool is only here so that it's a round even 8.
Right.
Because Zool isn't terribly relevant.
She video calls in.
Yeah. You know?
Oh, man.
But, yeah.
So, the comic starts, kind of in a different context from the way the last one ended, because Surge was already appearing before Eggman, but here it's sort of a more dramatic reveal.
Yeah, we're sort of doing we've rewound back 5 seconds to do this part again.
Yes. And, so, Eggman's in his dark back room or whatever, and,
Yeah. Terrible storage room.
Yeah.
Asking who's in there and saying that it better not be Sonic. While Orbot is worried for Cubot and is calling out to him.
Only for Cubot to say, "Shh! Cubot's not here!"
I love it when Evan's writing Orbot and Cubot.
It's so fun. It's so... Evan's the one who came up with "It helps with my anxiety."
She does really great with their dynamic.
Yeah. But, Surge remarks, "Not Sonic. Better." As she is wearing this dynamo cage, this unwieldy thing that was not meant to be a headband.
It was not meant to do this thing that it is, bizarrely appropriate for.
And we're gonna get... I love it, but so Surge is like, so you're Eggman, because she's just meeting him. "I'm taking your stuff," she says.
And Eggman is 0% impressed.
Yes!
He just leans over and looks at her and is like, "Oh, one of the pests who came in with Starline. What are you, some lunkhead flunky he hired?" Only to immediately turn around and say, "Actually, I don't care. Robots, don't aim for the head. I want my device back in one piece." And...
Oh, it's so good.
All the egg pawns he's got.
They shoot at her.
I will note, actually, that I don't think this is standardized for egg pawns, but these are standard orange egg pawns, but they have arm cannons, which I think only the gray Forces egg pawns had arm cannons. I think egg pawns still use, like, guns that they hold.
Yeah. But this looks neat.
Yeah, it works. I mean, if they end up doing this in the future, I won't be surprised, since they've done egg pawns with arm cannons, but
Yeah.
Eggman, not even looking, assuming that Surge has been killed by guns, is looking over at his other stuff and remarks, "What did he think the dynamo cage was? A hat? The things I have to deal with."
And it's just such fun. Like it's kind of rough, this scene where he basically just sets a firing squad on Surge. But it balances it out with this very, very fun levity of just him being a grumpy old man.
Yeah, and I think that's that's correct.
Yeah, I think that's pretty on point for Eggman.
Yeah, but Orbot is noticing a bit of a problem.
Yeah, and
as all those bullets and or energy blasts, whatever comes out of an orange egg pawn's arm cannon, have just been absorbed by the dynamo cage.
Yeah,
and Surge is being surrounded by pretty glowy light.
Surge's got her ultra ego power.
You may have kicked my ass, but now I'm strong.
And she has in this really good panel. Props to Adam Bryce Thomas. I love this panel.
This is a really good one.
Just zoom in as she just says with like a smirk, groovy, which is just
Not always the biggest fan of Adam Bryce Thomas's work, but he brought it for this page, and this page needed it. So bravo,
there you go.
And
Props, yeah, absolutely. And in the next page, Eggman has more remarks.
That is not how it's supposed to work. What have you done to my dynamo cage?
You know, it's fun enough to be like, oh wow, she sure just kind of finds this contraption that was clearly made for this story and just makes it work for her. But then to have Eggman just call it out, and be like, no, that's not
what he built it for. I don't know what he built it for, but it wasn't that.
But Surge just replies, "You genius doctor type think you know everything." And then she zips through and breaks some bad eggs on the way, and it's like, it's not your dynamo cage anymore. It's mine, and I'll use it my way. And then she zaps his nose and says, "Man, you're lucky Sonic's at the top of my hit list. Don't get too comfy, or I'll be back for you." And she just booms through a wall, zips down, and lands far, far away from Imperial City, and we are gone from there. That's done now. Fuck Imperial City, it's over.
There's just a panel of like a huge lightning bolt arcing away up and around and down.
Yeah, and there's this really cool like just very analog like VHS aberration effect on the colors if you zoom in. And like it just really adds to like the ridiculous crackling power.
It really instantly sells just how much stronger Surge has become in this moment with the Dynamo Cage.
Yeah, and she just says, "That rocked!" And then just electricity surges up above her as she just is in pure elation. And she says, "A minute more and he would have been crying for his mama. Testing this baby out's gonna be fun." And she's just all excited, she's pumped. And then someone behind her remarks, "I'm sure all the other kids will be very impressed by your schoolyard bullying prowess." And the color leaves Surge's face as she says, "What?" before turning, and we see the very perpetually shrouded in shadow face of Starline. "Surprise, miss me? Your new accessories are certainly a choice." And Surge very nervously says, You're gone!" And Starline replies, "Oh, that. It'd be more of a problem if I were real. That little number's got you running on overdrive, including your brain, minimal as it may be. Perhaps I'm your fever dream. As to why you've sought my counsel, well, it'll take all day to get to the root of that." And it's just this very cool, sinister tone in Starline's in Phantom Starline's voice.
Yeah.
And Surge is really flipped by this, and it's doing what? Oh, no way! And as she begins to take it off, Starline utters, "Yes, you're much better off without it. Beaten, weak, alone." And Surge counters, "I'm not going to listen to you." And Starline says, "You aren't? Then who are you talking to?" And Surge just very frustratedly goes, "Argh!" and she zacks the electricity onto him, and there's nothing there. Just a smoking pile of ash, or nothing anyway. And she just pants alone for a while. And
we leave her panting and alone and dealing with a manifestation of her own trauma that's taunting her.
Mm-hmm.
As we got to the next day.
Yeah, with Sonic and Tails over here with Belle and Kit, who is still around.
Yeah.
And Tails is wrapping up Sonic's wound.
Giving him a nice bandage for the vague injury he sustained in that crash that
From soft cushion.
that only actually started being drawn onto him when Evan took over for some reason.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
Sonic is satisfied with the bandaging.
Yep, he's pretty happy with it.
And Kit is people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Because Kit has very much latched onto Sonic as his new Surge, basically.
Yes.
Because he needs someone to lead him, he needs someone to tell him what to do, and Sonic told him what to do, and now he is clinging.
Now he is clinging so hard, but
He's like, do you need more ice, sir?
And Sonic says, "No thanks.
More bandages?"
I'm okay. You can chill, Kid."
To which he says, "I'm sorry, I'll do better."
And Sonic says, "You're good. Why don't you put the first aid stuff away?"
And Kit happily runs off, happily and stressedly.
Yes.
And says, "Yes, sir. Happy to have something to do. Stressed because he's a little ball of anxiety."
Yeah. And here we are with Belle, who is trying to repair Motobud.
Yeah. She doesn't know what she's doing, but and she's looks kind of stressed about it. But she reassures Tails, who asked her how it's going, that she'll figure it out, saying she has to.
Yeah. Then Tails goes to Sonic and asks a important question.
What are we gonna do about Kit?
To which Sonic replies, "Well, I was gonna start with the truth." And
Tails is skeptical, saying that, asking if Sonic's sorry, and saying that they could wait, they could give him some time.
And Sonic just says, "Surgeon's telling we're his family. As messed up as that is, he deserves to know." And then Kid comes back and sees that Sonic and Tails are looking at him with some... you don't see it, but obviously some trepidation in their eyes.
Yeah. He says that he wasn't sure where to put the box and apologizes if he put it in the wrong place, and then interrupts himself to ask if he's in trouble, since, he's coming into a room and two people are waiting for him and looking at him.
Yeah. And then Sonic kneels down, gets on Kit's level, and says, "Kit, there's something I need to tell you about what happened in the city. While I was fighting Surge, the ground was unsteady. She fell and was buried.
And the everything except for Kit is shrouded in blackness, as we just see him reacting to this.
With each dialogue bubble becoming more and more...
Yeah, the dialogue bubbles starting from there get blurrier, and he crouches down into the fetal position and just zooms out. And then, the panels get smaller and smaller, and we just get repeated panels of just narrow blackness.
Yeah. Sonic finishes, I'm sorry. I did what I could. They're gone." And Kid just looks destroyed.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, across town...
Didn't actually say the dialogue, but Sonic did go on to say that he tried to help.
I tried to help, but she was a proud fighter. To the end. And Belle saw Starline take Eggman on. He's gone too. Nobody could come back from that. And it's just...
We see Kit just being absolutely devastated, specifically by knowing about Surge.
Yeah, and...
In his state, there's no real telling if he even acknowledge the news about Starline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but learning that Surge has apparently died just has broken him.
And I just like to say, this is really good. This is a really good scene.
Yeah.
The art is perfect. The dialogue is perfect. It needed to be strong, and it was strong.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, issue 50 is still a bad issue, but like this feels like it goes a long way in like just adding some compassion and humanity, for lack of a better term, into Sonic after he was so just callous in issue 50
Yeah.
about just life and death. He just, as soon as Surge dies, he's like, he just smugly going on about freedom of choice means people make bad decisions.
Yeah, and
But like here, it's
Sonic,
like
yeah,
Sonic is acknowledging that Surge was a whole person and had people who cared about her, and it feels like for the first time he's like, that sucks that these people are dead.
mm-hmm.
Which I think is a good thing for Sonic to be. Just not enjoying or being like passive aggressive about people dying.
In general, this issue is actually doing anything with the apparent deaths of Surge and Starline.
Yeah.
In a similar way to like the previous issue had Surge, have an emotional moment acknowledging that Starline is supposedly dead.
Yeah. Where she notably does not feel any of the satisfaction she clearly thought she was going to feel when she reached that point.
Yeah, and now she has this, this phantom in her mind of Starline taunting her now.
Yeah. Meanwhile, across town, Surge is terrorizing Central City.
Yeah. Barry Allen is nowhere to be seen.
Yeah. Fuck if we know what he's up to, but he's probably late. If the Flash is the fastest man alive, Barry Allen must be the slowest. But anyway.
Yeah. Surge is lifting up cars with, I assume, electromagnetism, sending off lightning bolts all over the place, zapping at least one person. They don't look happy.
No, not happy at all. But she declares, "I'm back, Central City. Miss me?" And they're like, "We didn't meet you. You were just kind of a power outage that we pinned onto, like, maybe Rough and Tumble."
But not really.
Not really. It didn't really connect.
They were never actually arrested. That news headline never actually made sense. Anyway.
And then Surge says, "I've got a new toy, and I'm itching to try it out. Anybody want to volunteer?" Only to be interrupted by Whisper, who shows up with all of her wisps out.
Mm-hmm.
And
looking all cool with her cape blowing in the wind.
Yeah. And Surge says, "Ooh, I like your style, lesbianly." And says, "Got a name? I like to know who I'm pounding into the pavement whenever possible." And then we get Whisper's point of view.
Yeah, from within her mask, which of course also features the translator for her wisp, who are getting some dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one says, Pink says she's not so scary. We can take her. Orange says,
I just want to mention, so Pink's dialogue has a little bit of gibberish at the start to represent the wisp language.
Yeah.
Before it being translated within like little triangle brackets.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the rest of the issue, it's just the triangle brackets, and there's a little editor's note explaining that Whisper's mask is doing it. Because Tangle and Whisper was a while ago, and that's the last time we referenced this ability of the mask.
Yeah. But Pink says she's not so scary, we can take her. And Orange says, agreed, it would be unconscionable to allow this brutish display to continue. And so Surge launches an attack, noting that Whisper hasn't said anything and says, "Not much of a talker, are you?" And Whisper just says, "You're not worth the effort."
While I do want to note, she is rocket jumping using Orans.
Mm-hmm.
Bold move.
Bold move.
She switches to hover to flip over Surge.
Uh-huh. And Surge says, "You think you're smart, huh? Try dodging this one." And Cube remarks, as she switches to... Blue remarks, she switches to the Cube Wispin. "Oh, I hope this is over soon." And Whisper slams her hammer down, only for Surge to dodge quickly.
But in the moment she slams her hammer down, switches to pink, and throws out these, like, saw blade discs.
Yeah.
Which I think this is the first time she's used the pink with power, pink spikes on panel at all.
Yeah. And Surge remarks very, very, very funnily, "Jeez, it's like one of those knives with little bits in them."
I feel like it might have partially been said like this to avoid, like, the fact of, if you say Swiss Army knife, that implies Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just a very fun character moment for Surge to not know the phrase Swiss Army knife.
It just feels really good for me personally to to have a moment where someone is referencing something and they just don't know the official Sonic Wiki name.
Yeah.
Just a character who's just like, "It's that thing. It's a thing. Fuck." And Surge is getting to a halt. Is whatever. Who cares what you got stuffed in that umbrella hammer blaster thing? You'll still fry just fine. And then she fails to launch another attack because she's out of juice.
Yeah, there's a little wisp of lightning that curves up and disappears in a puff of smoke with a poof sound effect.
Which is also really good. And she's like, "I'm out of charge already? Crap!" she says, swearing in front of Jesus. Oh, Sonic Wiki's gonna put something in the put a dollar in the swear jar now, because this is profanity. She said crap.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What is this? What is this fucking? She's swearing like a sailor. But she says, "This gizmo's draining me faster than I thought. There's gotta be something I can do to get some more power." And then she's like, "Oh, right." And
With
then
a very evil smile on her face.
Yes, because Surge had an idea, an awful idea.
Yeah. I feel like this is definitely gonna come up with the Dynamocades draining her faster than she expected. This is not a good idea. I feel like, that's probably pretty obvious that what Surge is doing is a very bad idea.
It's unsustainable.
Yeah. Like, she doesn't understand what she's doing. She doesn't understand the things he's put on her head and on her wrists. She just knows that it makes a lot of big lightning. So
it's
definitely something's going to be happening by the end of this arc, and it's probably not going to be great for Surge.
Certainly not, but this is sort of a manifestation of how Surge is. No matter how far down the villain road she goes here, she is a victim of abuse and manipulation and brainwashing, and she, for much of her life, even as she has been empowered with electricity powers, she has felt powerless. So she is desperate to get as much power as she can, and kind of due to how she came into this power to begin with Starline, she's really wary of people who are going to explain it to her, because she thinks they're going to lie to her. And they're going to lie to her to keep her down, to keep her, power on a leash, to keep her under their control. And she doesn't want that. She doesn't want to be controlled. So she is going to just keep charging on through and disregarding any advice she gets.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible, terrible situation to be in for someone as headstrong as Surge.
Yeah, like, the Dynamo Cage gives her power. It gives her control.
Mm-hmm.
It puts her in charge no matter what.
Yeah. But, yeah, so she's hiding behind a little mailbox, I think?
I think it's a trash can.
Trash can, but, like, she comes around, and Whisper shoots her with the saw blade, and it really kind of grisly hits Surge.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when we went over the whole, like, Surge can survive almost anything.
Yeah, but we're kind of seeing it here.
But, like, we kind of aren't, because in the next very page, on the first panel, we see that the saw blade has dissipated.
Yeah.
Without it really hurting her, and has been absorbed by the Dynamo Cage.
Yeah.
Just want to bring up, we're still not really doing much with that whole near invulnerability thing.
Yeah. But, she's like, it worked. I love this thing. And Whisper, as we can see through her mask, is, not, the most excited about this.
Yeah. She's very surprised that her direct hit attack did absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm. And then Surge charges Whisper, pushes her down, and
pushes her mask aside, pushes the Wispin down.
Yeah.
And says, "My turn."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then Pink Wisp comes up, only for Surge to very roughly grasp Pink Wispin.
The Pink Wisp.
The Pink Wisp, which leads to Whisper saying, "Pink!" And Surge says, "So this is your trick, huh? Keeping so much power to yourself, you should really learn to share!" And then Whisper is mortified as she's like, no. And
she's also being electrically stomped in the gut.
Yes. And Surge takes all the power. We don't see Pink anymore.
We see her squish her hand down and absorb the Pink Wisp forcibly into the Dynamo Cage. Presumably working similar to other Eggman tech that has captured Wisps before.
Mm-hmm. And we have this this panel I don't much like, where Surge is getting really powered up, and she's drawn with like these very. She always has sharp teeth, but this time it's drawn like kind of differently. I don't like it. Anyway,
it's drawn exaggeratedly to like show how she's being powered up.
Mm-hmm. But also like that she's doing so in a very sinister.
Yeah.
Way. Anyway,
it's like, look, isn't she so evil? She looks so different and not normal.
Yeah.
It's a very common and not necessarily great shorthand using physical unattractiveness and physical like scariness of a person's body to represent villainy is just a shorthand you should probably avoid.
Yeah.
Because of life.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Surge remarks now, "This is what I'm talking about."
While she is now exploding in pink energy from the Pink Wisp.
Cyan says, "Whisper, let me blast that," and she
is cut off before Cyan can swear horribly like all wisps do, which is why we're normally not allowed to hear what they say.
Yeah. Was gonna call was gonna call Surge a fucking bitch, but
probably.
Yeah. They get it from Whisper, obviously.
Yeah, but
Surge cuts him off, and
yeah, it's a bit vague, this action.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand now. I actually understand this panel for the first time.
Oh yeah.
So on the panel on the left at the bottom here, Whisper is stopped short because there's a sunk sound because that's a saw blade. and then we see
Surge is just
Surge
thrown. So.
superimposed in between them,
Yes.
but not actually seeing her location. And she's thrown it and is holding another one, and then she just is in front of Whisper. I'm not sure if Whisper turned around or if Surge went quickly to be in front of Whisper, because this action is not terribly clear.
Yeah. Surge remarks, trying to run? Really? When I'm not done with you? And Whisper, making sure her mask is in front of her face, but you can see her crying. And she says, Blue, I need you. And Surge is like, yeah, show me what you got. And then Whisper
charges forward with her Wispin in cube form.
And hammers as hard as she can, only for Surge to be like, that's it? And after you got me all riled up, too.
As he's just caught the Wispin with just one hand, and is now holding Whisper above her with that one hand casually dangling off her Wispin.
Whisper says, give Pink back. Only for Surge to reply, pass. And slamming Whisper down.
Into the ground very hard, looks very painful, snapping the variable Wispin in two.
I did not notice that part.
Yeah, which releases Blue from it, since the whole device has now been broken.
And then she absorbs Blue as well.
Yeah, we just see one panel of her fist closed as Blue is absorbed into the dynamo cage.
With that same sound effect, vroom. It's very evocative. Then we have, we cut away to Sonic and Tails' house. Or Tails' house that Sonic lives in. Sometimes. Yeah. I mean, in 49, he was, like, just sleeping there. Like, he was, like, just like, oh, man, what are we doing here? Want to give that door a break, Motobud?
Yeah, I mean, they were also doing a science experiment, so...
Yeah. Anyway. Jewel is video calling Tails and saying, something's happening downtown, but we keep getting conflicting reports from Central City. Tangle and the rest of the volunteers are scrambling to deal with the damage from that Badnik attack the other night. Are you in the area?
Yeah, and I did want to bring up Tangle.
Yeah.
Because last time we saw Tangle, we knew two things about her current motivation.
Yes.
Number one, her main goal was to go and find Whisper and reunite with her.
Yes.
And then number two, she wasn't quite quitting the restoration because she was still gonna... She'd worked out a thing with Tool that she was still gonna help out.
Yeah.
And clearly, she's not tracked down Whisper yet. I assume in the aftermath of... Whisper's going through a lot of stuff that they will probably get an arc together later on. I'd love if they got the next miniseries after Scrapnik Island.
Just Tangle Whisper sequel miniseries. Then it sells really well, and then it becomes an ongoing. Huh? It's happened before!
Yeah, I did just want to bring up the fact that, like, we see, I think that with Whisper's involvement here, that we are probably setting up for the eventual Tangle and Whisper reunion, which at this point will probably be fairly emotionally charged, given that Whisper is already a character who does not deal with loss well. Her backstory was that she lost everyone that she knew and loved, except for the one that betrayed them all.
Yeah, and the reason she left Tangle was because she didn't want to lose her. So she was going to remove herself from her already. And so having all this trauma brought up, like, so freshly and experienced and re-traumatized, like, so freshly, it's gonna make Tangle selling her on being with her just a big ask.
Yeah, I really hope Evan writes when they get back together, because Evan writing Tangle great, and I mean, she's the one writing this moment with Whisper, which is continuing at least somewhat into the next issue as well. And I really would like Evan to get the follow through there whenever that happens.
Yeah, I would love that.
But yeah, aside from that, Tails is there on his computer, saying that he's close to Central City. in whichever one of his many houses he's in. This is one that's close to Central City.
Yeah, yeah.
I assume we're back in the forest house that doesn't look like his face, but just has windows that look like his ears a bit.
Yeah.
Which is the one I like.
I like that one. I like to think we're there.
Yeah. Yeah, Tail says that he's there in the area, and Sonic's there too, so don't worry, they'll check it out.
And Sonic comes up to the camera, is like, yep, we got this, and gives us a thumbs up to Jewel. Like, don't worry, I give a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Our move's gonna be just fine. And Jewel says, oh, thank goodness! Good luck, you two! I don't know if anyone notices, but my Jewel is just always just a very big ball of anxiety, just constant worry in her voice.
Yeah, and while Sonic's saying, yep, we got this, Tails is looking at him with a bit of an unsure expression, and the next panel's like, do we have this?
And Sonic very frankly says, it sounds like we kind of have to.
Yeah. And Belle volunteers to stay behind with Kit because somebody should be here for him. As we see him curled up like a fox, like the animal, all curled up in a ball under a blanket, looking very much like he is a tiny, small, depressed little being.
Yeah. We cut back to the conflict between Whisper and Surge, and Surge at this point is just covered in this rainbow of stolen power.
Yeah, see, in addition to taking pink and blue, she's now taken orange and green, leaving cyan the only wisp by Whisper's side.
Yeah. Surge says, it's been fun, but I'm starting to get bored. So what'd you prefer? I mentioned to try out this rocket thing, but maybe the spikes. It's what you did to me, after all, just return the favor. And then,
Whisper reaches down to the now even more broken variable Wispin that's been cracked and shattered, and grabs a sharp piece of it.
Yeah.
And lunges at Surge with this sieve.
Yeah.
Trying to stab her.
Really heavy here. She doesn't hit her, which is great news for the age rating, but like,
Yeah, I mean, just like, Whisper, she's too emotional to think of it, but unfortunately she didn't take the lesson that she learned from fighting Mimic, that bladed weapons can never hit their target in this comic.
Yeah, it's rough. That's why he turned bad, because he had the knife. He's like, I can't use this. God, fuck this world.
Yeah, so we get a sort of monochrome, all yellow and orange panel where Whisper is thrusting, and there's just a bunch of casual dodging.
Yeah.
From Surge.
And then it's kind of like this, like,
so
panel.
There's like a heart rate machine panel that, like, the heart rate goes out behind Surge's head while she's all blue now, and then the panel just jump cuts to Whisper being squished by a big blue cube, which I didn't understand, or I couldn't understand what's happening here because we hadn't seen Surge use much of the Wispin powers, and the one time that we did, I actually didn't understand it there either. I hope that the action with her using the Wisp abilities is a bit more clean in the next issue, because I assume she's going to keep doing this in the next issue. Because for now, it's not been very clear every time she's used a color power.
Yeah. But she crushes Whisper under the cube.
Yeah. Causing Whisper to, I think, drop the... Yeah, she's dropping the sieve.
Yeah. And then Surge very confident is like, nice try, and just feeling herself, feeling great. And then Starline says, sloppy. Phantom Starline, I should say.
Yeah.
Even with all that pilfered power, you're a mess. At least, you're a consistent mess. We pan over to Tails and Sonic, who are flying into the scene.
Mm-hmm. We see Surge in the background. I think she's turned to look at and I think yell at the car that she's imagining Starline is standing on.
And she is pointing and yelling. Yes.
Yeah. And Tails remarks, "That's Whisper, but who's with her?"
And Sonic says, "No way! Surge! She's alive!" Doesn't look like the close call back at Eggy's made her rethink her life choices, though. Don't worry, I can handle her. Sonic says, because it worked out so well last time. Surge says, "I don't care
We
if
cut back to Surge's perspective, where we can see her phantom image of Starline.
Yes, and she says, "I don't care if you're not real. You're getting a beatdown." And Phantom Starline, clearly knowing exactly how that would look and go, is just like, "Oh, this should be fun." And Surge blows up the car. Fuck that car.
Using the orange rocket power. And then, I didn't pick up on this the first time, but when she uses orange rocket, the blue cube immediately fizzles out.
Yeah.
So it seems like she can still only utilize one of the color powers, which I assume is going to come up if there was if the comic bothered to note that it occurred.
It's Tricor all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And Tails goes to Whisper.
This time with Sonic colors.
Yeah. Tails goes to Whisper, and Starline appears behind Surge, poking her head and saying, "Aiming a little low, don't you think?" And Surge, very frazzled, is like, "Shut up!" Only to notice Sonic chilling on another ruined car. And
he turns around, presumably to look at Starline, only for Starline to not be there, and it is now Sonic.
Yes. And then, in very icy text from Sean Lee, just says, "You." And Sonic says, "Hey, Sparky, glad you made it out. What's with the fancy headgear? Our last little chat got cut short. Now, where were we?" And then they start fighting a lot.
Yeah. We see that Surge has used another rocket to try and blow Sonic up, while Sonic has jumped and done a bit of a homing attack to get away.
Yes.
Tails we see, though, in the foreground, escorting Whisper to safety, and gets her around a corner and says, "Just lay low. Once you sorted Surge out, we'll get you back to the lab."
And Whisper just says, "Tails, I need them back." And she is very, very emotional and crying.
She is crying and has a pained grimace on her face, and the Cyan, with the only one left, is very concerned about her.
And is hugging her in the next panel.
Yeah. And we get a panel of, from behind her with her in silhouette, seeing Tails' soft expression. He says, "I will save them, Whisper. Stay safe."
And we have a faceless news reporter, because we don't see the screen here, just saying, "Eyewitness reports claim to have seen overturned cars and injured civilians." And
yeah, we've cut back to Tails' one of his house labs.
Yeah.
I think Bell is on Tails' computer with Kit in the background, still swaddled up in his blanket. But as he hears the news report, he pokes an eye out.
Yeah.
And as the report goes on, Bell turns as he hears the creak of the door opening.
"Authorities strongly advise that citizens avoid the downtown area until the threat can be assessed and contained." But then Bell sees that Kit is leaving the house.
And she says, "Gah, Kit, no."
And she slams the door really quickly.
But Kit says, "I want to help." And Bell says, "Cures and starters, you have to look after yourself."
And
Which, once again, Evan Stanley is going back to her horror speciality.
Yes.
And reminder that she was the primary character designer for Kit as well.
Yes, so she definitely had a hand at this, and it's really effective in her script here.
Yeah. He says, "Look after myself." Why? As his bangs have covered his face and he's all in shadow, but you can see his glowing pink eye peering through. Bell, in shadow, looks up as the shadows of his tentacles go onto the ground, and he continues, I was made for her. She's gone. But Sonic can use me too. I won't lose him. I can't. And he is being suspended by all of his various water tentacles, looking very creepy.
And it's a different kind of horror than people often go for, because it's not like, oh, I'm scared of this child. It's like, I'm scared for this child. And, like, he's just suspended in the air by all these, like, water tentacles, and it's like, and it's like they've got him all tied up, like his own trauma and, like, his own, like, just hang-ups about Surge, about just never getting any individuality and just, or any sense of self-preservation.
Yeah.
Just the horror of a child with so much vibrance, so much life in them, just not feeling any of it as the most will they can muster is just being used by someone else. It's very effective.
Yeah. Bell starts trying to talk him down, saying, look, you're going through a lot right now, but eek, and gets interrupted as the tentacles start coming for her. She yanks her tail, goes click, ding, to get a nice big spinning jump.
Yes.
And says, stop, we can talk. She lands on top of a big, like, crate container being suspended from the ceiling.
Yeah.
Which Kit just slashes the sports for, causing it to fall on top of Bell.
Yeah.
As she sees him in the open doorway, she says, you already matter. He looks back, his eye glowing, before he whoosses off, being propelled by his water, and actually only now notice that we are in the terrible face lab.
At least Kit's out of there now. Thank goodness. But,
And, next time, Surge and Kit reunited with an interrobang.
And, yeah. That's issue 53. Very solid issue. Very solid issue. As we said many times before, Evan Stanley is the reason to read this comic.
Yeah, Evan. I mean, there's only been 2 writers on the main series so far. As of next month, we'll have, a second writer who's done a miniseries.
Yeah, with Danny Barnes.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing how that goes, because I didn't really get a sense of his writing from the annual.
Weapons, yeah. Hey, Freya writes in chat, I enjoyed it a whole bunch. We certainly did too. It's a really good issue.
It was very emotional, very affecting, and I mean, as per usual with Evan Stanley, highly efficient storytelling. So much happens in this issue, and there's so much going on. Like, reading through it again for the review, I noticed a lot of details that I just had missed. Some of them were because I think that the actual, like, visual presentation wasn't very clear. But some of it was just because there was a lot going on and I didn't see all of it.
Yeah.
There's so many details packed into, like, almost every panel in the fight scenes. Everything's very deliberate, very on purpose.
Yeah. And it's just, this is what I think these comics should be. It's just very effective comic storytelling that is making use of the medium, that is not undercutting itself too much with just the content of its story, because sometimes there's this sense of, like, okay, let's just really push it here and really push the boundaries of what we can do with this comic, regardless of whether it lets the comic be as good as it can be.
Yeah.
This one is still, like, really pushing the boundaries of its age rating, but, like, it still works. It still works with that.
I mean, like the big emotional trauma for Whisper here, with her Wisp friends being absorbed, isn't even anything new. This is something that, like, from the Wisps being taken and absorbed and mechanically used against their will was something that was in Sonic Colors.
Yeah.
It was the main, like, villain plot there. And so, like, we're using something that has been done in Sonic before, and we're just using it in a more personal way, a more personally affecting way.
Yeah.
Because these aren't just, like, random wisps that we don't know. Like, these are Whisper's friends.
Yeah.
These are her last, back when she was with the Diamond Cutters, each of them, was bonded to one of these wisps. They were partners. And
now they're all she has left.
Yeah. And, if the cover for the next issue, where, next month preview where Surge is evilly petting Cyan, is anything go by, she's not going to have any of them left.
Yeah. But, yeah, so, I think, this issue definitely builds off of off of the good work that, the good foundational work that issue 52 started.
I mean, something that I notice about this issue as well is that it does some things that issues 50 and 51 should have.
Yes, it does.
It makes anything of Surge's apparent death. It makes anything of Starline's apparent death.
Yeah.
Surge is being deeply affected by she believes Starline is dead, at least. And yes, I'm still phrasing it that way because I still believe he's going to come back later.
Because I'm going to say once again, if they took the most gay-coded character in the comic and literally buried him, I'm going to have some words.
Yeah. But, that aside, I'm just flipping through my copy right now. Trying to think because I do have some other thoughts that I've been keeping.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm just seeing if there's anything else that I can think of to talk about. Do you have anything?
It's just such a good comic. I feel like Surge and Kit are really being utilized here in a way they just haven't been since the miniseries.
It feels like, we're getting more exploration of Kit, for one, which we didn't get as much. It was mostly focused on Surge. And so getting more for Kit is good, and it all feels naturally within his character. I'm really curious how next issue is going to go, considering that Kit has now embraced and accepted the fact that Surge is gone. He believes he is dead, and he has pinned himself to Sonic, replacing Surge in his life's motivation with Sonic, because he needs someone there, because he doesn't have enough of, he isn't a very self-actualized person. It was shown in, I think it was the last issue of Imposter Syndrome. Like, the brainwashing sessions, it took hundreds for Surge, whereas, I
think it was issue 3, yeah.
Kit was molded. Yeah, I think it was issue 3, because issue 4 was the attack. Kit was molded into being just an obedient tool for Surge very quickly.
Yeah.
He didn't have a lot of will. He didn't have a lot of, impulse to be himself. And, he still doesn't have a lot of himself. He only acts in relation to others, and only sees himself in relation to others. And so, he's not in a very healthy place at all. And he's also just very powerful, and he is almost certainly going to be making some mistakes, and depending on what they are, next issue, I think, is going to tell us a lot about how this arc is going to finish, because how Kit reacts to Surge being alive and how Surge reacts to Kit is going to affect a lot of things.
Yes.
And there's so many directions it could go in. It's really not clear for me exactly how this is all going to wrap up.
Yeah.
I'd like for it to end with Surge and Kit going on to a more sustainable path, because currently neither character is.
Yeah.
Both characters at their debut are not in a remotely sustainable place.
Yes.
They are currently in the midst of a very emotionally affecting arc for both of them.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that the end of this arc sets them both on a path where, you know, these characters can stick around and have more stories told about them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah.
For sure. For sure.
I really like these characters.
Yeah.
You know, while I did not enjoy 50, Imposter Syndrome itself was a really good journey.
It was Ian's best work in literal years.
Yeah, and I don't want these characters that are literally what that work was.
Yeah.
I don't want them to not stick around. I want more of them. I really like them. I think that there's a lot of potential for them for storytelling.
Yeah.
But like, in order for a character to keep coming around past their like initial arc, they do need to, you know, it's comic book. You know, they need to be put on some kind of sustainable path for them to be reused and be used more and be used in different contexts.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, this is the only context available for them.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious how their characters are going to shake out through the end of this arc.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm definitely buying into this, right, because Evans mentioned on her Tumblr that, like, this arc is, 52 onwards is called Overpowered, and I like that we are having it separated from...
Yeah, 52
51.
through 56, he said, is being
Overpowered.
called Overpowered, which is appropriate for what's going on with Surge right now.
Yeah.
She's being very much depicted as being basically unbeatable right now. So
Yes.
Very curious how that's going to shake out as well, just because, like, honestly, I like Evan Stanley's fight scenes. I often complain about fight scenes, with this comic in general, because I don't like how Ian does them.
Yeah.
But I like Evan's fight scenes. I liked this, like, fight because it feels when Evan does a fight scene like the actions matter.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like there's story progress happening with the fight, which is how I want fights to be.
Ironically, with her fight scenes, there's very little fluff. Because in issue 50, there's a whole page dedicated to, and now the big mechs are gonna punch each other, it's so cool. And that, my friends, is what we in the business call fluff. It's not actually doing anything for the story, it's not having any consequence, it's just there to be there and look cool. That's called fluff in action.
Yeah.
Whereas, Evan is more just,
Evan is a very meat and potatoes writer.
Yeah.
Like, when things happen, it's usually for a reason, and that's good. Like...
Yeah. But,
do you think you're about out of observations? Because I do have one I've been holding back.
Please give it.
Alright, and this is partly a nerdy thing and partly another sort of me looking forward to Tangle and Whisper and how they might happen. Because, as is obvious, Whisper's going through a lot. Mm-hmm. 4 out of her 5 Wisps have been absorbed by Surge. The 5th is about to be.
Yeah.
Her variable Wispin, the very, the device she uses to connect with them, and the thing that was left behind, like the variable Wispin, as you may remember from the Tangle and Whisper miniseries, was the prototype for what the Diamond Cutters were going to all be using together.
Yeah.
They were all going to be able to all of the Wisps were going to be able to be used by any of them, mm-hmm. and that was how they were going to work from then forward, before they all died.
Yeah.
And so, this variable Wispin itself is kind of also a symbol of what she's lost, and it's been shattered, broken, and crumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so, Whisper's going through a lot, but also her wisps have been absorbed. Their powers are being used forcibly by
Yeah.
Surge. And as I mentioned, this has happened before in Sonic games, in
Yeah.
Colors.
Mm-hmm.
In Sonic Colors, of course, the Wisp were being their home planet was taken over by Eggman. Just to give a general overview of how it went.
Yeah.
And he was capturing the Wisps and draining them of their energy in order to power a mind control ray. Yeah.
Something like that.
But like the important thing is he captured them and he drained them.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is that the drained wisps actually became dark wisps or nega wisps, I think is the English version.
Mm.
Um, and I generally tend to say dark wisps. I like it better.
Yeah, me too.
And so something I'm wondering is, are Whisper's friends, her friend Wisps, are they going to? Because here's the thing, they're not dying.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening. They've been absorbed, but Wisps, that happens to Wisps, and we know they can survive that. We know that this is probably deeply unpleasant, probably painful, probably traumatic, but they're going to come out of this on the other end, some way or another. But what I'm wondering is, are they going to be drained and transformed into Dark Wisps at the end of this? Which would then of course require that Whisper needs to set them right, because as per Sonic Colors, Dark Wisp is an unnatural state of being.
Yes.
They become violent, they become aggressive, and they just in general don't have a good time. And I think because in the original Colors there were two Dark Wisps.
Mm-hmm.
But multiple Wisp types have been added afterwards that aren't necessarily confirmed to be Dark Wisps, but still follow the same Dark Wisp design structure of they don't have eyes and they have sharp teeth.
Yeah.
And I forget if there's 4 total that fit that, or if there's 5 by now, but either way, it's a direction I could see the comic going with. And it might not happen.
Might not
but
happen.
I think it could be an interesting way to make it feel like there is more, like, to give this a lasting impact.
Which they like to do with these.
Yeah, so that's sort of, something that I was percolating on as I reflected on the comic is that going to happen?
And is Tank going to be part of that process?
Yeah, like, because if Whisper's Wisps become Dark Wisps and she has to, purify them, set them back to their original, reinvigorate them with their proper energy, in whatever way that happens. Because I think the Wisps overall, just when the energy got released from Eggman's machines, they got turned back. But in the DS version, there was the Mother Wisp, and I think, like, Sonic just, as Supersonic, flipped her energy back to positive.
Yeah.
So, there's precedence for just, needing to do it through a manual means with the Mother Wisp.
Yeah.
Especially if all the energy that Surge takes, she uses, so it can't be given back to the Wisp.
Mm-hmm.
And given how much power drain
the
Dynamo Case has, I would not be surprised if there's just not enough energy.
Mm-hmm. Going back to Tangled Whisper, after all this, like I said, it's really going to take a lot, like a very powerful motivation to get Whisper to be with Tangle again.
Yeah.
And it's at this point I come back to the question, the big will they or won't they?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. Sega, this is a licensed comic. They're licensing Sega's characters that they own to tell these stories, and Sega has made it clear they aren't terribly interested in romance. Now, there have been times where the terms of their licensing deal don't apply universally. Like, for instance, if it's not a canon game character, then you get like much more leeway in like character deaths.
Yeah.
But like, we don't really know if that applies to if that applies to romance, or if it's just we really don't want to do that in general. But like, and if it ultimately never happens, that's one thing. I have mixed feelings about just how the team behind IDW Sonic have handled queerness in this world, especially pertaining to Starline.
Yeah.
But like, setting that aside for this discussion, because that's not happening right now. It's fine. Characters can have like fully featured stories without romance in them. Life isn't always about romance. Just ask people who are aromantic.
Yeah.
Or on that spectrum anyway. And that's something that Evan Stanley, the writer of this comic, has brought up before when that discussion has come up. Just that, like, romance isn't the be-all, end-all, and it doesn't... And not having it doesn't make the stories inherently incomplete. It just so happens that they have been, like, implying a lot with Tangle and Whisper.
Yeah.
Like, it is no... thank you for sharing that with us, Freya. That's really cool. Like, it's very clear that the team behind the comic definitely, at least most of them, very much ships Tangle and Whisper.
There have been many, like, instances of them being physically close in art, them sharing things that very much look romantic. Like, there's been a lot of romantic teases for Tangle and Whisper, and
especially in the situation we're in right now, where they've done what they've done with Starline, I personally feel like there has to be some sort of, like, more substantial queer statement being made with these characters than there is right now.
Yeah, because Starline being gay-coded in love with Eggman is significantly more explicit in this comic than anything with Tangle and Whisper, which is kept incredibly low-key.
And the thing with that is, historically speaking, it has been easier to distill queer coding into characters who are portrayed as villainous. And that has had the knock-on effect, if not intentional effect, of villainizing queerness.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's also been a lot of times when villains were made intentionally coded queer to villainize queerness.
Yes.
You know,
and
so it's like,
that sucks. And
it's something that you need to be cognizant of, especially if you're not queer and you're queer coding a villain.
Yeah.
Ian Flynn.
Yeah. And while they haven't spoken about this, I don't think, very explicitly, they have talked about a different thing that is only allowed in villains, and they'll use it when they can because it's a neat character trait.
Yeah.
Which is Black Sclera, which you can see in Mimic and Clutch.
Yeah. That villainous gangster opossum man.
Yes. May have heard of him. But yeah, you know, they use that character trait even though it can't happen to... You can't be included in heroic characters. Mm-hmm. It is specifically a villainous physical character trait, and I don't like that on principle. I like the design. I like the design trait. I think it's fun. I like it. But, like, it's not cool to specifically give a physical indicator of villainy. And
well, not only that, but, like, The thing is, black sclera is a physical aberration.
Yes.
It is abnormal. And there is a long and storied history of using abnormalities to villain code things.
And we saw that here with Surge.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before. And the thing about that is that has effects. That has real-world effects. I don't know if anybody here has ever looked at the Changing Faces charity from the UK. They're the only charity of their type that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
If there was a local one, I'd probably follow that, but as it stands, I don't think there's one in Canada or even North America at all.
Yeah.
But, that honestly, just check them out. Look at them, because
Check out Changing Faces, yeah.
They work with people who have facial differences, abnormalities, and such, bodily abnormalities, and they try to spread awareness about how, hey, can you maybe not point and laugh and taunt and stare and criticize people who are just people who happen to look different? And I think we all owe it to ourselves, especially if we are not that physically different. Like I'm a fairly standard, what is thought of as a standard for a human.
Me too.
There's not a lot about me that is particularly aberrant from what we think of as the base human model. There is so much variance in what a person can look like, and far too often that variance is used to treat a person as a villain, to show that they are bad, to indicate that this one is not a hero. This is a bad, evil person. You can tell just by looking at them, kind of a thing, and that's not good, as you might be able to imagine.
And it's a serious topic that bears discussion all on its own. I always just bring it up here, just to illustrate that it is a thing they have they have publicly been known to indulge in, of okay, we can't do this thing we like to do with heroes, but we can do it with villains. So we're gonna do that and probably not think about what that implies and what that says.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of indulgence in Starline with queer coding. And this is the point where I'm going to acknowledge that many fans of the comic have embraced this aspect of Starline and in fact ship Eggman and Starline. Unfortunately, a lot of the comic has been devoted to very much torpedoing that ship and making clear Eggman does not remotely like Starline even a little, even slightly.
Yeah,
and that was the case for there was not much reciprocation going on to begin with, but it's been very much emphasized since issue 50, since the death of Starline, apparently. And it's just, there's things you have to consider, and there's ramifications for decisions you make, and I'm just saying that I think it's fine if Sega doesn't want to do romance. All right, I think it doesn't mean that the stories are incomplete. It's just that they have been doing a lot of implying with Tangle Whisper, and then at the same time having undertones and overtones of queer coding in Starline, and there's consequence of that. And if there is more than one character that is that explicitly queer, and they get to be good, besides the bad one, it's different from how it's just Starline's the only one who's that explicitly queer.
Yeah.
And when he is most explicitly queer while being a villain, even if there's some coding here and there with Tangle and Whisper.
I mean, I do want to point out that, it's not just that he's a villain as well, but it's the fact that it's not reciprocated.
Yeah.
That makes it feel predatory.
Yeah, and and in point of fact, when Starline kidnapped Mr. Tinker and he's trying to change it back to Eggman, there's a line, we've brought it up before.
We've brought it up before.
And I don't feel like we've been talking about heavy stuff already. I don't feel like going over it specifically, but it definitely hammers home just the predatory nature of this part of his character, and I don't like that because that's bad.
Yeah, and like stories have consequences, and the things you put in a story matter. The themes you put in a story matter, and you need to think about that.
Especially when everyone in this work on this comic has made no secret of like, yeah, just participate in fandom stuff. We're career Sonic fans. We're around this space, so it's kind of impossible to not notice that there is definitely still, even today, an undercurrent of anti-queerness in Sonic fandom. It is there. It never stopped, as Chris said. And
one of the most villainized SIPs, probably the most villainized SIP in all of Sonic, is Sonic and Shadow.
Yeah.
It is the premier SIP to hate, the premier SIP to be jokingly disgusted by. Jokingly.
Quote unquote, yeah.
It is the one SIP that gets made fun of, ridiculed, and torn apart for no other fucking reason than because it's gay.
Yeah, and there's been some efforts to like come up with very progressive sounding reasons to hate it. Like, oh, age gap, probably. I understand cryogenics, which never comes up with Chad Amy. It's specifically
weird.
Shadow is specifically predatory, and it is a predatory age gap if he's being gay with Sonic. But if he's being straight, then surely there's nothing amiss. But there is specifically a problem with anti-queerness in Sonic fandom. That is undeniable, and if you're going to deny it, you are part of the problem. But
yep.
And so like with such a cognizance of the fandom being in it, there is a degree of responsibility the team holds in like not just delivering comics that excite and engage readers, but like there's a responsibility not to encourage these worse instincts, and that's just that. I have a lot of problems with how Starline's been depicted. I've come around more on. If you followed me for long, you probably remember when I was more negative on Starline in general, but I've come around on just enjoying him personally and his love for Eggman personally. But that doesn't make what's being written good when it's bad, when it's harmful.
Just because you can take something good out of something, that doesn't make the thing good. And I think that's something that people get tripped up on, is that like people can look into things, they can ignore parts of it, they can pick it apart to get something positive out of it for them. But just because you do that, it doesn't make the thing better. It doesn't make those problematic aspects you're ignoring go away. Your cherry picking doesn't affect reality.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna say once again, because sometimes this gets twisted, specifically by straight people who don't understand. The problem isn't that Starline's gay, all right? That's not the problem. The problem isn't that Starline is gay.
Yeah.
The problem is how that's being depicted, and how that's not being reciprocated, or just the ramifications of that, and how there's no heroic equivalent at all.
Yeah, the closest heroic equivalent would be Tangle and Whisper, who are significantly less
explicit
than what Starline gets.
And if you're going to position them as the answer, the heroic answer to Starline's queerness, that carries its own implications, where since they are less explicit, they're more respectable because they are less in your face about their queerness, and that in itself is bad.
I also would like to point out that as I said, the most maligned SIP in the fandom is Sonic and Shadow.
Yeah.
And for various reasons that aren't necessarily positive. And I'm not saying that, like, lesbianism gets objectified and fetishized, which means that it is not actively attacked in many contexts in the same way that gay relations between men are attacked. There's a societal bias.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean lesbians have it better.
Certainly
They, in many ways, have it worse.
Yeah.
But it does mean that lesbian representation often gets in with less fuss. Not no fuss, but less fuss.
Yeah.
Whereas relationships between two men, if actually depicted, get a lot of sit. And also, even if not depicted. Again, sun and shadow.
Yeah. But,
So putting an overt gay man villain and then having very covert gay, lesbian characters,
it's not actually the big winning move that they may or may not think it is. I don't know. I don't pretend to be privy to their internal discussions about these things, because there are multiple queer members of the team working on this, and or just otherwise LGBTQIAP plus, etc. Because not everyone wants to be called queer. I personally do, but so just for the record, if you don't want to be included in queerness, that was your inclusion when I said LGBT and all that.
Yeah. We tend to often use queer as a useful shorthand, like a lot of people, because it has been reclaimed by a lot of people. We understand not everyone has reclaimed it, not everyone likes it, but
you're not being included if you don't want to be included in that word. You are being included in your LGBTQIAP plusness.
You can understand why we just say queer.
Yeah.
Conversationally.
Yeah. We are queer.
Quite frankly, if you have a problem with us using a remotely sayable shorthand in speech, like in text it's one thing, it's a lot easier to type out than say, but in conversational casual speech,
yeah.
Different ballgame. Anyway.
But yeah, I think we've it's kind of came up just because we were talking about Tangle and Whisper and how I would really like them to be more explicit. Because that would be a helpful step.
Yeah. Give us an on-page kiss.
Yeah.
Give us a Tangle and Whisper 2 miniseries and end it with an on-page kiss.
Yeah. It wouldn't even be in the main series, y'all. It'd just be in the miniseries. But, yeah. Whenever queerness comes up in these reviews, it kind of just ends up being a big discussion because there is a lot of unresolved issues with queerness in this comic specifically.
Yeah, and where the comic is right now, it's not in any position to resolve any of that quickly. Even if, efforts start being taken by anyone on the writing team, by anyone on the editing, by anyone from Sega who has oversight, even if anyone wanted to make any differences, comics are often written a long time in advance and planned even longer in advance.
Yeah.
So, if they today, as of right now, decided they wanted to resolve those issues, we wouldn't see that until sometime next year at the earliest.
So, yeah.
Probably the end of the year, too.
Mm-hmm. It's all just to say, we're going to keep talking about this so long as it remains an issue, and it has remained an issue, and...
Yeah.
Yeah. But, for right now, today, we have a good comic. It was a little rough. We had two really awful comics, one of which I would call one of the worst Sonic comics they've ever printed. And the follow-up being one of the most useless Sonic comics they ever printed. That sucked.
Yeah.
But now we've had 2 issues of Evan Stanley, and things are looking up again.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty optimistic about how this storyline's gonna wrap up. Yeah. So, any other thoughts or?
I'm just, looking through the fight scene again, one of the fight scenes anyway, and just
Yeah.
it's good.
It's just real good. We would recommend y'all go out and buy this if you like Sonic.
Yeah.
If you haven't been keeping up already, you can just start where Evan starts and get lots of context from there. You don't have to watch. You don't have to read Zeddy Hunt, but reading Imposter Syndrome is a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely recommend read. Yeah, starting from Evan Stanley, skip Zeddy Hunt, read Imposter Syndrome. You can skip 50 and 51. Not much happened.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get all the context from 52 and forward.
Yeah. It's a time skip, y'all. But, yeah. I'm looking forward to next issue. And, just... We'll see how this comic continues to grow. We're only a little over 50 issues into this comic's lifespan. Not every comic makes it this far.
Yeah.
And here's hoping this one continues as long as the team wants it to, because I like a lot of the people who work on this comic. They're doing great work, and
I'm gonna be honest. Like, as of now, here, issue 53, it feels like things are happening. It feels like things that matter are happening.
Yeah.
Like, we're in the middle of events that we're probably going to be talking about and referencing for some time to come. Who knows how long.
Yeah.
And that feels good. It feels good to think that, like, this is going to matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, we'll anticipate the next issue and look forward to what Evan has in store for us. She did say she had some tasty issues, some tasty comics.
And this has been very good and very a lot.
Yeah.
Heavy, emotionally charged.
Mm-hmm.
A lot going on.
Very much.
And both a lot happening now and setting up a lot of things that are going to happen next time.
Yeah.
Like, you can do both.
You can.
You can have some real meat to your story and be setting up for more.
It's real cool. It's real cool that just Evan is back and she's showing him how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's, I think, our review for now. We'll catch y'all next time. We try to review stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you haven't already, please feel free to follow our Twitch channel to try and catch those.
Yeah, and in terms of reviews, I think Scrapnik Isle comes out next.
Could be.
Scrapnik Island?
Yeah.
Anyway, when Scrapnik Island comes out, we will...
we'll at least check out the first issue, I think. We can say that much.
I mean, like, it's a Sonic comic. We've been reviewing those, so I feel like we will probably review Scrapnik Island. And we'll also be back for 54, which is also October?
I think so.
Because it's a monthly comic, except for when delays happen.
Yeah.
And,
no double-sized issues,
rough.
I don't think. Yeah.
World's rough, so...
Yeah.
Sometimes delays happen.
They do. But, yeah. If you're watching from the YouTube VOD channel, which is linked to in our Twitch profile, if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe, leave a like or comment. Cluster reads the comments.
Yeah. There's a link to our Twitch channel in the description of all of our Twitch VODs, so if you're watching from there, you can come over to here and, follow us.
And make sure if you want to catch us, you'll be notified when it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, until next time, I'm Felicia Rondo, and it's Closer over there.
Hey, y'all.
Bye!
Bye-bye.